once again into the breach with 10 more questions to ask your favorite conservative, asked by a liberal website. So let's go on a journey and see what liberals, at least these liberals, want to know about conservatism. So this comes from addictinginfo.com, which, according to media bias/fact check, has a strong left-wing bias that they're not at all shy about admitting. That said, though, I don't care where my questions come from, only if they're interesting to answer and give me something to think about. That's really the reason I continually answer these questions, both for conservatives and for atheists, because it lets me get inside the heads of the opposition, as well as providing answers that, let's be honest, they won't acknowledge and certainly won't think about, but at least I'm the better person because I come through with answers, even if they ignore them. So let's see what misconceptions Addicting Info has about conservatives and why, as shouldn't surprise anyone, they're just wrong. Question number 1. Why is it that when people hoard things, they are a scourge on society, and when they hoard money, they are job creators? In fact, aren't the people that buy things the true job creators? Okay, because the people who hoard money, they're not job creators. You create jobs by producing things and hiring people and paying them wages, the polar opposite of hoarding money. This is just stupid if you think about it, which the people on the left tend not to do. And there's nothing particularly wrong with hoarding things. It depends on the scarcity and importance of the things that they hoard. If you're hoarding life-saving medicine that exists only in small quantities, then yes, you're an ass. But if you're hoarding rocks, so what? Your hoarding doesn't harm society in any way. So this starts off with a false assumption and then goes nowhere worthwhile from there. People who buy things fund the job creators, but they are not themselves creating any jobs. They're not putting themselves on the line, facing likely bankruptcy and ruin, trying to make a product or provide a service that will probably fail. 66% of all small businesses fail within the first decade, according to the Small Business Administration. That's not very good odds for someone who might mortgage their home for startup capital only to be left with nothing. What do their employees risk? Well, really, nothing. At worst, they have to go find a new job. They have no huge investment in the health and well-being of the company. The owners and the investors and the officers of the company do. Question number 2. Both the 10 Commandments and the 7 Deadly Sins have no mention of being gay or having abortions. Greed, though, seems to be a biggie. Why do conservatives seem to get that backwards? Well, I don't care what the Bible says, so that really doesn't apply to me. This is another case of people confusing conservatism, the political ideology, with Christianity or religion, which is something else entirely. I'm conservative, but I'm not against gays or having abortions, and I'm not against greed either, so long as it isn't fanatical. Fanatical greed is bad for society, but all successful people are greedy to some degree or another. It's a necessary characteristic for capitalism to operate. And yes, I know the far left hates capitalism, but screw them. Question number 3. At which point did getting sick become a moral failing? Morality doesn't enter into it. What we need to pay attention to here is responsibility. Everyone, like it or not, is responsible for themselves and their families. Society isn't, they are. So failing to care for yourself and be responsible for yourself, it's not a moral failing, unless you view irresponsibility as immoral, and as I said, I don't think morality enters into it at all. And while it might strike people as unfair, life is unfair, and we have to deal with the world we actually live in. This is really part of a larger picture of responsibility, where people, starting from when they're very young, must be held accountable for making good life choices so that they can afford to live a decent life. Yeah, it sucks if someone comes down with cancer or some other disease that is entirely beyond their control. It's terrible. It's also reality. It happens. I mean, I'm diabetic. It isn't my fault, it's genetic. The medications I take, if I had no insurance to help pay for them, would cost me over $1,000 a month. That doesn't include doctor visits, medical testing, and all the other little things that go along with it. It sucks, but it doesn't change reality. So I have insurance, and it's my job to have it. It isn't society's job to make sure I'm taken care of. It's mine. For the worst cases, yes, maybe society can and should help out. But not when everyone has their hand out. That's not how this works, no matter how bad that might make you feel. Question number 5. In what way are people who buy and sell paper making more significant contributions to society than teachers, nurses, firefighters, police officers, mail carriers, artists, etc.? Now, you'll notice that the numbering system is wrong here. This is question 4, but it says question 5. They'll figure this out in a couple of questions, but they never go back to fix it. Not sure what that says about quality control, but we'll muddle on. And this is where the far left simply doesn't understand basic economics. It's all about supply and demand and the arbitrary value that society places on some things and not on others. Again, nobody said life is fair, and I'm not going to argue for or against any specific things being more or less valuable objectively. This is just how it happens to be in our society, and while you can want society to change, while you can and should work for worthwhile change to happen, wishes and dreams don't make it so. Question number 6. Really 5, but 6. When did the right to unlimited profit become greater than the general welfare of the people? All right, who is making unlimited profit? Because there is a limitation to how much money actually exists on the planet at any given time, so no one has unlimited profit. And this is one more delusion that occurs on the far left when they think of corporate CEOs as mustache-twirling, snively whiplash characters or Scrooge McDuck diving into his vault of gold. It just isn't so. And most of these people have worked for years or decades building a successful company and absolutely deserve whatever compensation they can achieve from it. But you know what the far left has never complained about? Media tech companies that lean left politically. Nobody cares that Alphabet, the company that owns Google and YouTube, they don't care they made $110 billion in profit last year. Or Facebook, which made $27.6 billion in 2017. I don't see the left demanding that Mark Zuckerberg or Sundar Pichai be thrown out because they make too much money. I mean, Pichai makes $200 million a year with a net worth of over $1.2 billion. Apparently, no complaints there because he pushes liberal causes. It's just silly. Question 6. Again, why don't people realize that there's no such thing as a self-made man? Even the most successful and ethical people can thank their parents, their teachers, their siblings, their employees, their customers, the government, their contractors, etc. Without them, they would be nothing. The unethical might want to work on their apologies. Here's where they fix their numbering system, by the way, with another question 6. Anyway, they are right, no one is completely self-made. But the most successful people have put themselves out there a lot more than those who aren't successful. They have risked financial, personal, and emotional ruin in pursuit of success, something that a lot of people are simply not willing to do. Because if that wasn't the case, then everyone would be equally successful, wouldn't they? Or another way to look at it, maybe the reason people aren't successful is because people around them, their parents, teachers, siblings, employers, whatever, screwed up. Maybe those people need to apologize to the unsuccessful for not propping them up and making them multi-billionaires. Something to think about. Question number 7. Why is physical labor less important than sitting behind a desk? And this kind of goes back to something I've already addressed, that some things are subjectively more valuable to society than others. But in this case, it's probably more objective than subjective, even given the vague details that are provided here. Someone digging a ditch doesn't make as much money as someone managing a company because the ditch digger's labor doesn't generate as much profit as the manager. How valuable any given individual is to a company is based on how much their individual efforts contribute to the overall success of the company. That's why the janitor, who really generates no profit at all, gets paid far less than the CEO, whose work and direction is likely responsible for the profit the company makes. So why should the janitor make what the CEO makes? It makes no sense at all, but economics don't seem to matter when you only care about feelings. Question number 8. Why should people who inherit their money not pay taxes and people who earn their money be taxed at the highest rate? What other kind of people are there? People who don't earn their money? You mean people who get government handouts, right? Because that's dumb. Tax the people who are working for a living more so that they can pay for all the people who are not doing a damn thing. And if you tax them high enough, they might say screw it and stop working so that you eventually run out of people willing to work for other people and the whole system topples. But nah, let's not worry about how the economy works. It's all feelings that matter. If more people just got off their butts and went to work, if the government wasn't a bloated, inefficient mess, then they wouldn't need nearly so much tax money as they demand. That money could go back into the private sector in the form of new jobs and higher spending, which benefits us all. But nah, why would anyone want that, right? Question number 9. At what point did we start judging people based on the size of their checkbook rather than the size of their heart? It's not the size of their checkbook, it's on their hard work and dedication. We see, yet again, the liberal emphasis on feelings and emotions over hard work and intelligence. I guess this is no surprise, and it's probably good that they're being honest about it, but that doesn't make it any less pathetic. Here's the reality, whether you like it or not. We live in a largely cooperative society. What you do affects others. If you don't work, or if you aren't successful, if you need more help from society than you provide benefits to society, then you are a drain on society by definition. And when you have more people not paying into the system and taking money out, which at present, 44.4% of Americans pay absolutely no federal income taxes at all, and at least as of 2014, which is the latest stats I can find, 35% of Americans receive some form of government welfare. So where is the money coming from to pay for all this welfare? You and me, the working people, the successful people, the people who don't have our hands out. We are paying your bills, and what are we getting in return? Nothing. And that's a problem. It doesn't matter how big their internal organs might be, they are a drain on society because they are unable or unwilling to pay their own way. So yes, I think people ought to be judged on that basis. It's great to be a caring individual, but only so long as you've got the financial wherewithal to not harm society as a whole. And finally, question number 10. How has being a conservative helped you? Now, this is actually a harder question than it looks because I've never not been a conservative, so I've got no real point of reference. Because for me and other conservatives like me, this is how life is. It's how we've always lived it, and it's what's made us successful. It pervades every part of our lives, just like liberalism does for the other side of the aisle. So when going to school, I knew that I had to get an education, to get good grades, to learn things while I had an opportunity. I picked a college major that had bright prospects. I enjoyed it, but being able to make money when I got my degree was high on my list of requirements, and I worked hard since I was 16, and even before that if you count doing things like people's yard work and the like. But by the time I was 18, I had performed well enough that the company I was working for wanted me in management and was willing to work around my school schedule to get me there. By the time I had my first degree, and that's my first degree, I was ready to work with major companies making very decent money, and I've only gone up from there. So you might say that's where being a conservative helped, but for me, I just considered that being normal. So that's another 10 questions down, and I can't wait for the inevitable liberal dogpile. It's okay, I understand, But there are lots of people who say, well, I disagree with what you say, but they can't articulate why. What is it about what I'm saying that's so wrong? So I will ask you specifically, for anyone who disagrees, exactly why do you do so? I don't want to hear about feelings. I want to hear a solid, evidence-based, logically defensible reason for why what I'm saying is wrong. And unfortunately, I don't think I'll hear anything, because the objections to conservatism, at least the secular conservatism that I follow, doesn't seem to be based on evidence or logic or reason. It tends, at least in my experience, to be based on feelings. It tends to be, it doesn't make me happy, therefore it's wrong. But for people here who are liberal atheists, how can you throw emotion out the window when it comes to religion, to reject the claims of the religious who believe for emotional reasons, and then turn around and do exactly the same thing when it comes to your politics? That makes no sense at all. And you all know me. Sense is all I care about. Logic, reason, evidence, those things matter. What actually works matters. What makes sense matters. And I have yet to find anyone argue sensibly that secular conservatism doesn't work if people just try. It's the people who don't want to try, who don't want to be responsible or accountable, who don't want to work hard and reap the benefits of their labors, that don't seem to like it. And that makes no sense whatsoever. None whatsoever.